as good as we can do?
Find them best.
Good.
It looks great in the shot.
Great. We ready? Tara?
Go ahead. Yep.
Good afternoon. We are here this afternoon to share with my fellow Washingtonians some concerns we have and an update on some important matters regarding our statewide efforts against this virus. I won't be issuing any legally binding orders today, but that does not mean that we would not be back here soon to make further legally binding orders. And we understand that perhaps the force of law will not be necessary if Washingtonians act with the force of compassion, in the force of responsibility, in the force of a sense that we are indeed all in this together. We remain concerned that some of our state are not taking the measures that are absolutely necessary to preserve health and life and limb in the state of Washington. It is not rhetorical or hyperbolic when I say that everyone needs to change their behavior, change the way we live temporarily if we are going to prevent significant loss of life for the people we love in the state of Washington. And when I say everyone, I mean, frankly, everyone, because we all are potential transmitters of this virus, and we all, to some varying degree, are potential victims of this virus. And if anyone is living a normal life today, you are not doing what we need to do for you to do if we're going to save lives in this state. We are still seeing people behaving as if this virus was not a mortal threat to people in this state. Although I laid out orders last week for people to stop eating in restaurants and going to bars and other gathering places and put limits on large gatherings, we are still seeing people ignoring both these orders and common sense about what it takes to protect our loved ones. I've got to be unequivocal about the orders that are in place. They are crucial to halt the transmission and spread of this virus and to stave off disaster both to our lives but to our economy. And they are enforceable by law. If people continue to ignore this common sense provision, I will go farther to protect 7 million Washingtonians. So I'm asking you, and you may say I am pleading with you, to stay home, unless it is necessary for you to go out. And I'm asking both businesses and individuals to help us accomplish this. Now, not everyone has got the memo on this yet. I just talked to a friend of mine this afternoon who found out that her 18-year-old son was still going out, hanging around in various places where the young folks hang out. That is not responsible behavior. And if you're seeing an 18-year-old doing that, tell them they're going to get cut out of the will if they don't behave. Because we have got to be serious about this virus. And if they don't respect that, tell them they're going to hear from the governor. We've got to change the way we do business and run our family life in this state. Now, employers have an obligation as well. They have a moral and legal obligation to the health and safety of their workforce, including biosecurity risks presented by COVID-19. Workers that are older than 65 and those with underlying health conditions, as defined by the Center for Disease Control, are particularly vulnerable to exposure and the associated consequences. So I am working on a proclamation to ensure that these workers have a legal right to leave the workplace to protect their health and to self-isolate for the duration of this outbreak, and make sure that they have the financial means to be able to do that and the legal protection to get their job back when this blows over. So employers have got to do their part to help flatten this curve. And employers are encouraged to use all possible tools to offer high-risk employees flexible options for telework, and alternate job tasks, or administrative leave in order to maintain worker pay and benefits through this difficult time. Now, today, for the workers in this category, without these protections that are given voluntarily by their employers, our state unemployment insurance system is available as a backstop. And we're working hard on establishing the guidance necessary to protect workers and support businesses in this regard. If you are in one of these vulnerable groups, I want to see to it that you have the right to stay home to protect yourself. And I urge you to do so. Look, if you're over 65 or have some underlying health condition, unless you are in some essential position, and there are some that are necessary to the well-being of your community, physicians, those to keeping the food system going, look, if that is not necessary, you ought to be home. And we want to protect you when you are there. So at the moment, we're trying to determine whether I can accomplish that by executive order or whether there is further legislative action. But we intend to get this job done. But we really can't wait for that. Employers need to make accommodation right now. And we're committed to doing this because we want to ensure the health and the economic stability for high-risk populations so that they can self-isolate. We ask employers to make appropriate accommodations for their employees' social distancing for all the employees, if in fact they're on site. We can't have too many people in the room. We have to have cleaning and sanitizing in all places. So regardless of your industry, whether it's industrial or warehouse, in an office or a retail store, you have a moral and legal obligation to make this work for your employees. You've got to practice social distancing in the workplace, and you've got to ensure the biosecurity of your employees. Now, we need to be protective of these people in our personal lives as well. I'm asking every Washingtonian who has someone older in their family to call them tonight and tell them you really can't go out anymore except for essential purposes, like getting food or the pharmacy. Sure, it's okay to go out for a walk outside as long as you stay more than 6 feet away from other people. But it is too dangerous, particularly if you're of this age group, to be going to dinner parties, to be going to coffee clashes and sewing needle get-togethers. That's just too dangerous right now. And it's too dangerous, frankly, for your grandkids and your family necessary to be close to you. So it may be a while we're back to normal, but we can help everybody in this community get back to that position. Now, this is important as well. While it is important that we minimize our physical connectivity, it is a moment to maximize our emotional connectivity. We know that the stress of isolation for all of us, particularly people of age, is really, really troublesome. But we can do something about that. We can call frequently, we can text, we can send letters and flowers, and this is really important too. And I'm asking all Washingtonians to help their loved ones through this time. Now, this isn't just about people of advanced age. This is for everyone. Someone asked the other day, what's the penalty for a young person going out to a restaurant or hanging in a social get-together? And it's true, the penalty is you might kill your grandparent. And that's something we need people to think about right now. Every Washingtonian is a leader in this effort. You know you can be causing harm if we don't act responsibly. Technically, it's a crime to violate any of these rules, but it's a moral crime, in my book, to put other people at risk. And the most important people are the 7 million people of Washington who can get this job done. So we're doing this to make sure people do get the message. Now, I'd like to brief Washingtonians on some of our efforts here as a state. As you know, we are very scientifically oriented and data-driven in our decision-making. And since day one, we have been very intent on making decisions based on the data and the science. And fortunately, we're very lucky to have some of the best scientists and epidemiologists in the world right in the state of Washington. But I have to tell you this, and I'm going to show you some statistics. We have made some progress. We have made some progress because of some of the things we've done together. To ban large gatherings, to close our schools, to close our restaurants and our bars and our theaters. But we have not done enough. And I want to talk to you about that to show you some of the data that we're looking at on a daily basis. First, I'd like to show you one of the things we have done is look closely at our traffic data from the Department of Transportation. And the reason we have looked at this is that this is a fairly good proxy or representation of how many social interactions people are having by looking at how much they're traveling. And there's some relatively good news there, and there is some very disturbing news there, and I just want to share that with you. This is our Washington State DOT tolled facilities. So this is a chart since March 1 of the traffic in the places where we do toll on our state highways. And if you look at this for the arterial in Seattle, SR 99, we've seen a relatively steady decline where we now have about a reduction of 61% below the typical or average evidence. And we need that to continue to go down. We've had some good measurable progress, but we need it to continue to go down. On SR 520 on the bridge, we have seen again fairly consistent reductions over time for the last 18 days, down now to 59% less than typical travel. But if we look at the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, although we've had some improvement, we're still only about 24% down. If we look at SR 167, we're still only about 28% down. If you look at Spokane, it's not on the chart, but it's still only about 20% down. This is not enough. In the Lakewood area of I-5, it's only about 5% the other day. That is not enough. It is clear that we have continuation of too many social interactions going on in our state. So what this points out to us in doing the analysis is that we are capable of changing behavior. It's happening in King County. But in many places across the state, although we've made some progress, it is not enough. I want to show you the second graph. If I can find this graph. We have been doing testing in our state. We are probably doing as much or more testing than any other state. We're doing somewhere in the region of 3,500 tests a day. We've done 20,742 tests so far, and 93% of these tests are negative. About 7% are positive. I just wanted to share this to let folks know there is testing going on in our state, but we cannot be fooled to think that that 7% means we're out of the woods, because that 7% could represent potentially still a doubling of this virus. So these facts do not give us sufficient confidence that we have in any way, shape, or form beaten this virus. And the risk of enormous explosion of the virus remains real. Therefore, we have got to continue to look at the science of this, and all of us, I believe, have to continue to accelerate our efforts. Whatever we're doing, we are not doing enough of it, or more importantly, we're doing too much of it. We need positive change. So this is not the beginning. It's not the beginning of the end. Maybe it's the end of the beginning, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, of this effort. Now, I am hearing good stories, as we all are. We've heard the singing in Italy, but we've seen similar things in our state. I heard about Representative Marcus Riccelli from Spokane, who teamed up with a local business to distribute over 1,000 meals to families in Northeast Spokane last week while the Spokane School District got their food program up and running. Now there's a community-wide effort called Spokane Food Fighters to help deliver meals to families who may not have access to meals through other channels like school districts, food pantries, and the like. It's just one example of the amazing kindness and support throughout the state of Washington. We've had some good news in our efforts to build our medical and hospital capacity. And I'm going to look for those numbers here that should be available in a moment. I will get them. Let's see if we can find these numbers here. I know in our ventilators, we need more ventilators. We have about 200 on order from a Massachusetts firm and about 18 from another location, but we need to accelerate that effort. David or Tara, we have somewhere the numbers of some of our PPE here. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, we have a chart here. I'm sorry about this. Yeah, I just wanted to let people know about the progress we're making on personal protection equipment. This is vital for so many different folks in the state of Washington right now. We just got some good news this afternoon. We will be receiving in the next few days 1,600,000 N95 respirators. This is absolutely critical. We're going to have 560 surgical masks coming in, 12 million disposable gloves, 650,000 disposable gowns. By the way, we think we're going to be able to make some of these gowns in our prison industries, actually, and 74,000 canisters of disinfectant. That's coming from the federal stockpile. I spoke to the Army Corps of Engineers today, and they are on duty ready to assist us in preparing both additional hospitalized units, but also helping to prepare for isolation facilities for people who are homeless and the like. And we appreciate that assistance. So this work is ongoing, but as I've said, it's going to take us all to buckle down with more robust, more comprehensive, and more dedicated efforts. And I'm going to ask Washingtonians to do all of that. With that, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Okay, we're going to start with Rachel from AP.
Governor.
Rachel.
Hello. So Secretary of State Kim Wyman has asked for the postponement of the April 28th special election, citing in part concern about the election workforce, especially those who are older. Given the guidance that you've just given today on older workers, have you made a decision yet on whether to use your authority to reschedule those elections?
I have not, and I'll be talking to the Secretary about her thoughts in the near future. So we'll have an answer to you shortly, I hope.
Governor, so far you've not been willing to order a statewide shelter in place, even though New York and California have already ordered such. Why are you holding back? What would change your mind?
Well, as I've said, we're making a day-to-day assessment of the data that affects Washington State. We actually have accomplished a significant part of what California and New York have done. And if you really drill down to what those orders have been, we actually have done a substantial part of that in closing our schools and in closing our restaurants and our entertainment facilities and our gathering restriction. We've done a lot of what they have done in their orders. But we, as I've said, are looking at this data to figure out the moment where it might make sense to do that. And when we do that, we also have to be surgical in what essential jobs perhaps could continue. Obviously, we need to continue to deliver food to people in the grocery system. And that means we have to have trucks to deliver the food. It means we have our medical health care system that has to continue. We have to have people to make sure the dams work and the electrical system works and the telephone system works. And teasing out what part of that economy, we are starting to look at what that would look like if we had to make that decision. Obviously, there are profound economic consequences to families in the state of Washington if we make a decision of that nature. So we are evaluating whether we think we can achieve the goal of preventing massive loss of life here. And right now, we're doing a lot of positive work. And what I want to reiterate, to avoid something like that, we need powerful volunteers in the state of Washington. We need everybody to volunteer to be part of this Army. And if they do that, we might be able to avoid those further decisions that other states have had to make.
And latest on the hospital ship?
So we have requested the hospital ship. We've made a powerful argument that unfortunately our state will be the first state that has a health system that is severely challenged. And so it is our position that the best place to do that, to put the ship, is the first place that will have tremendous challenges. We're in good contact with the Department of Defense. There's been good discussions about this. My sense is that this is being looked at very carefully. There are also medical assistance from the U.S. Army that we've not ruled out as well. We've also asked for a 750-bed Army field hospital that could also be a benefit. So one way or another, we would like to have substantial medical assistance. We need that. We need thousands of beds. And we do believe that the Mercy would be best deployed where it is most needed first, and that is Puget Sound. Now, there may come a later date when the wave has hit us and maybe is on the receding end, that it goes back to another place as the wave hits somewhere else. But we're going to be as powerfully forceful on this, and our state delegation on a bipartisan basis has been very active on this. I appreciate their bipartisan efforts.
Now we're going to go to Joe with the Seattle Times.
Yeah, Governor, the equipment that you just mentioned, like the ventilators, the N95 masks, the gloves and gowns, do you have estimates when they're going to be here in the state? Are we talking 1 day away, 1 week away, 1 month away?
So my understanding is it's potentially as early as this weekend, and that's important because hours are important. Look, we've got people all over the state in hospitals and clinics, and emergency workers that really desperately need this. So we're very happy. Just about an hour and a half ago, we got a notice that these are, if not on trucks and trains, on their way. So that's very important. Yeah, so this list I just read to you is, we were told, should be here this weekend. I want to reiterate something I have not had a chance to talk to the media about, and that is a really important part of this effort to make sure that we have access to enough of these measures is that we really do not do further elective surgery or unnecessary medical or even dental procedures so that we can stockpile that personal protection equipment for when we really, really need it in the upcoming days. So we issued an order on that yesterday. I'm pleased that we have a lot of people pitching in. The Dental Society actually made essentially this decision on their own, which we really appreciate. We just need to not be using this unless it's really necessary right now. So if your elective surgery is rescheduled, I know that'll be frustrating to people, but this can really save lives in the next several weeks.
Now we're going to go to Jim Drew with the News Review.
Governor, had a question about enforcement.
Jim, can you speak up, please?
Yeah, Governor, I had a question about the enforcement effort. Chief of Staff mentioned an example where someone was waiting for takeout and they were offered a beer and standing at the bar drinking a beer, which is not acceptable. Are there ways to actually enforce what you've already instituted? And then if there is a stay-at-home order, what would the enforcement piece look like for people who don't understand that they could kill their grandparent?
Well, all of these orders, it is a criminal infraction that could be prosecuted if necessary, but this should not be necessary. Look, people ought to understand they got loved ones, and all of those loved ones are at risk if we don't follow these common sense things. Now, the vast, vast majority of people in Washington are honoring these orders, the vast majority. I think the thing that we're short on is the individual decisions we make in our daily basis that we shouldn't have to send the National Guard out. And that's when people are going out to dinners where you really don't need to go out on big dinners right now. It means, you know, if you're a teenager, not hanging with your friends in close proximity. It means calling your grandparent and say, Grandpa, it's just too dangerous for you to be hanging in close proximity with people right now. So I'm going to call you every day and get you a good book to read and try to keep you alive. And so that's really the most powerful thing we need here. I've seen it in a lot of places, but as these charts indicated, not enough. So we need to really put pedal to the metal on this effort.
Yeah, I'd love to ask a question because I was the one at Alki Beach yesterday.
Mhm.
It was wild. It looked like the summer. And I was talking to those folks, and there's kind of a flippant attitude of this because what doesn't impact you and it hasn't impacted you. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. And I hear you saying, you know, everybody needs to step up and do their part, but that's what we've been saying for a long time, and it's difficult too, Governor Inslee, because there's officers driving the strip in Alki, and you know the folks who are doing the kind of alcohol serving while it's still takeout, and the people who are on the beach. I'm curious for you. I know you said you don't want to have to enforce anything, but do you think it's enough to say, please take us seriously this time, or?
Well, as we've indicated, we've had some success. Some of the numbers I've shared with you have indicated that some of this data say we have had some success. This is not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of people staying home, and there's a lot of 18-year-olds who are showing common sense. So it's just we need to continue to ramp up that effort. We need to continue to keep the pressure on. And as I've indicated, if we're not cutting the mustard, there could be further orders coming that do have both stronger scope and more enforcement behind them. But I want to reiterate, we have the ability to influence some of these folks in our individual lives. Those people you see at Alki Beach, most of them have parents and brothers and sisters. And those folks got to hear from their parents. And social pressure is something that can work. And I'm asking people to exercise that. You know, your kid may need an attitude adjustment. And that's what we really need right now. So I'm hopeful that we continue in this effort, and I hope that it'll be more successful.
Time for a few more questions. Now we'll go to Hannah Scott with Cairo Radio.
Hi, Hannah Scott with Cairo Radio. Governor, are you doing everything you can to stop or slow the spread of the coronavirus in Washington State today? If so, please explain how.
Well, we are doing everything that is good for the health and safety of the people in the state of Washington. As I've indicated, we were one of the first to legally ban large gatherings, and we have now decreased the size of that. We were one of the first to close our schools, which was a very difficult decision, I can tell you. We are one of the first to have closed all of our entertainment and social networks. We're one of the first to have some degree of significant testing here in the state of Washington, although there's much more to do. We are providing good unemployment compensation, including making sure people can get it as soon as possible. Now, I know we have some delivery issues. People are very frustrated about this, but we removed the legal 1 week requirement to have to wait, and now we're bulking up. We're hiring 100 people to try to accelerate getting that money out the door. We have made good decisions, very rapid ones, to get $75 million out the door of the 200 that has been appropriated. We have a vigorous effort to build up our medical capacity, some of which I talked to you about. And I'm exercising every ounce of the bully pulpit authority that I have to try to help us all become unified in this effort. And there may be additional orders that become necessary. Those orders are not slam dunks, because when we do these things, it has an impact on the ability of people to pay the rent and pay the mortgage and buy bread and shoes for their kids. And we got to take that in consideration as well. And so those are all the things we're thinking about. And right now, I think we're making the right decisions for the state of Washington. And we will continue to look at this data every single day.
Now we're going to Jim Camden with Spokesman Review.
Governor, I'm wondering what's the most important metric you'll look at that would trigger a more restrictions like a statewide shelter in place? Is it emergency room admissions? Is it more positive tests? Is it more fatalities? What's the trigger mechanism here?
Well, this would be kind of easy work as governor if we could give you just one metric to look at, but there's no algebraic or algorithm that can really do this. We have to make a judgment about the right call based on a lot of uncertainty. And all of those things you mentioned go into the mix. We've had an uptick in hospitalizations with people with COVID-like symptoms. That is troublesome. We have had mixed results in our traffic patterns, which have some significant decrease in some places, but very inadequate decrease in other places. We are looking at what we will be able to accomplish in our surge capacity in our hospitals, because it's a race between increasing your surge capacity and the extent of the epidemic. We are continuing very sophisticated modeling, feeding all of this data into models that the epidemiologists can give us. And it'll be a bit time till we have the next model to help us predict these matters. And I just want to tell you the difficulty of this as well is this virus has thrown some curveballs at different times in different places. This is not entirely predictable about how the virus will behave. It appears to behave somewhat differently based on where it is and what population it is working in. So all of those things are important. We're going to continue to make the best judgments we can, and I think you know how seriously I take this.
Then we have time for one more question. It'll be Jerry with Ever Herald.
Governor, I wanted to go back to your comments about the businesses. If you could clarify one point about whether you're taking or signing a proclamation to give workers the legal right to leave the workplace to protect themselves, and related to that, one particular business in Snohomish County, Boeing, a number of its workers have called for shutting down the Everett plant because of the number of employees who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. What's your, do you think they should shut down that plant?
Jerry,
for
if you could
weeks?
bear with me just for a moment. Tara, I have a piece of paper on my desk. It has the name of this fella I want to cite. Could you see if you can help me with that? Thank you. So yes, the question about Boeing is connected to the whole rest of the state's economy, as you know, and it is not the only place, but obviously a huge part of our economy and the workforce. We generally would think that we would think of Boeing as we do other large employers, both from the safety of their employees' perspective and the economic impacts to families if they do have to close. So what we're doing today is to tell Boeing employees and all employees that we want to protect you if you're over the age of 65, or if you have serious underlying medical conditions. You ought to be able to stay at home and keep your job and get unemployment compensation. Now, for the rest of the employees, the decisions have not been made. We have not made a decision yes or no on that, and we evaluate these on a daily basis. So the possibility exists. We have not made that decision categorically, and that decision will be based on all the data that we continue to get hourly. Do you have that just for a moment? No, that wasn't it anyway. Okay. Do you have another question? Okay, I want to thank people for their continued effort. I want to repeat that we're going to get through this. I think people understand that. All of these things we've asked of Washingtonians are temporary with permanent consequences. So I'm hopeful in the days to come we bend to this task, we get through this together, because we know we are going to get through this together. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Hi, thanks.
See you guys.
desk was the epidemiology report, so I don't know. I don't know somebody's name.